You have a little switch. If you see the red dot, it's on. On the side right here. Turn it. Oh, cool. Yeah, I can. Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for joining us at the .org Expo. So far, it's been an incredible morning. We're just about to get started our second panel. We're going to keep just one door open so that people can still come in, and we'll keep the other one closed. So today's topic is operating for success, managing complexity in multi-layered Jewish nonprofits. Originally, it was managing complex nonprofits, but people got the wrong gist when hearing that. I'm joined today with two incredible individuals, one that I've known for a long time and one that I've just gotten to know in a very serious way over the week. We're here with Rabbi Chaim Rothstein, who's the executive director of A-Time.
I'll clap for that.
And Reb Daniel Gordon, who's the COO of NCSY. I'm going to hand it over to the panelists, starting with Reb Chaim, to just give a short introduction about yourself and a little bit about what you do, and then we'll get started.
Sure. Thank you very much, Abisror. Thank you for hosting Lincoln Square Co. and Powwow. Wonderful event as always, as of last year. Thank you, Reb Daniel, for joining me on stage here. I'm humbled and honored to be here with someone and others from such large, impactful organizations for Klal Yisrael, and with all of you also. This is an honor and a privilege. If you're in this room, that means you care to help those who need help, and we're here to do more. So hopefully today we can share and learn and do more. Currently I work for A-Time. I started there actually as of a few days ago, 4 years. My original career was in industrial organizational psychology. I have a degree from Columbia University. Ended up in Deloitte Consulting in the human capital practice, doing primarily organizational change management. And through that time, I also got married, and my wife and I ourselves are going through a struggle of infertility for many years. So A-Time has helped us immensely over the years, and we got more involved. And over time, they yanked me in as of 4 years ago to help. I'm more of like a COO, the MS, help with operations, process, basically add structure, more help for more yid, and ultimately that's my goal. So wonderful again to be here with all of you, and looking forward to a great conversation.
Thank you, Chaim. I'm Daniel. I am not a rabbi, despite what it says on my name tag. That's an important part of my identity. My job and my goal is to empower the people that do the amazing work at NCSY to do their work. So I'm not a rabbi. I don't do kiruv. I empower kiruv. I began my career at Yeshiva University. I worked there for 7 years in the president's office. I started as an intern with one of my fellow presidential fellows is here, Zahava. I started as an intern. I was supposed to be a lawyer. Got bit by the bug of working for the Jewish people and stayed for 7 years. Came to NCSY, did some fundraising. Hated every second of it, so I left. Went to go work in healthcare for 4 years. When I was at YU, I got my business degree. I got an MBA from the NYU Stern School of Business. And then 2 years ago, I came back, and I run the entire back end of NCSY, as well as all the integration with the OU and all their support infrastructure-wise. And happy to be here and help in any way we can.
Thank you so much. Very excited. So today we're going to talk with two individuals that run very large organizations that are multi-layered. I just want to make an important note before we kick off that many of the things that we'll discuss also do apply to smaller, quote-unquote, mom-and-pop shops, and you'll hear that throughout today's discussion. So let's kick off with organizational design and structure. Now, I know this is a very scary term and topic because design often connotes that something was thought about before it actually happened, which is very uncommon in the nonprofit world, especially when we start great organizations. The first question is, and we'll start with you, Reb Chaim, how do you structure teams and departments to make sure that there's alignment across such a large organization? And maybe you could speak to how many employees A-Time has as well.
Sure, great question. So you're going to hear a common theme, I think, threaded. You said Nakuda Panimi. Threaded throughout this, which is, I would say, communication, to put it in a simple term. When thinking about it, because like A-Time, so we have, depending how you slice it, 50 to over 100 employees. We have a whole staff of mashgichim, for those who are familiar with the sugya of supervision. So each of these services and departments that have evolved over time and been added to A-Time's portfolio, leadership within each of those departments is absolutely key. When I joined the organization a few years ago, there were a few services that were added over the years that there were multiple people that were kind of leading it. So which one is really taking responsibility? How is that communicated across? So accountability from leadership within each department is in my mind one of the key steps to this successful structure. Meaning, you need someone that the noke to choke, right? That one neck to choke. I'm sorry. Within each department, that leader that you can go to that will be accountable for that department. That means that department's metrics, their stats, their growth. Have those conversations with them. So it starts at the top. Having the clear leadership within each one that that individual person that you can go to speak to make sure that things are going well. That's I would say a key ingredient when it comes to the structure. And then beyond that, again, communication top to bottom. So it's not just about managing down and making sure they and their employees are empowered, but managing up and making sure that they communicate to you as the leaders above them, so that they feel supported. So I would leave it at that. I want to hear more from Daniel, a bit more about structure. But when I came, that's one of the key things that I noticed that I made sure to implement is that there's a clear leader within each. Again, depending on how your organization is structured, it could be a specific product that you can organize by. It could be a region that you organize by. We happen to be very densely populated in the tri-state area. We do serve outside of this community, but we can essentially run as geographically located within the tri-state area effectively as of now to meet the needs of our constituents. Not necessarily with all organizations is that true. Sometimes you do need more of a regional model where you'll focus on different regions to meet the needs. So I'll leave it at that. Daniel?
So I think that's absolutely right. NCSY, to my knowledge, is in its third organizational design evolution. That was a positive word for what I was going to say. Evolution. The first was NCSY started literally in shuls around the country. This is years ago, servicing from Jews who went to public school mostly, and then went to shul on Shabbos. This was like in the post-Holocaust era, imagine like the 50s and 60s. Then as NCSY grew, it started regional offices all around the country, and those became their own businesses. And when they were small, it wasn't such a big deal. Small little businesses running, using the OU's backing, but infrastructure and money from the OU, but also just running their own businesses. As NCSY grew, we now have over 300 employees. We also have about 500 volunteers. That's outside of the summer when we have about another 1,000 employees. Summer overlap. We have 1,000 employees that work for us in the summer running our summer camps. It became clear that we needed to change the way that we run. And for the last 2 years, we've been working with EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. The last panel, I think, is moderated by an EOS facilitator. I'm blanking on his name. And it's been transformational because one of the things that happens often in small organizations or multi-layered organizations is that when they're small, the CEO, the visionary, the rabbi who has this dream, the impossible dream. I saw Dr. Donath here before. Talk about a dreamer. I was one of the first 8 people to sign up for daily giving, and now they're giving away tens of thousands of dollars. They should be inspired by that guy. But when he started, I imagine it was, I can do HR and I can do payroll, what's a few paychecks, and then my accountant will help me, and I can deal with these issues and that issues. When you start getting into even 10 people, 15 people, 20 people, there's all kinds of things. There's compliance, there's IT, there's all those stuff that having specific we call them verticals, but departmental deliverable owners is important. So in our EOS world, there's a visionary, that's usually the founder, and as the organization grows, there's an integrator whose job is literally to integrate all the business units, that's my job. And below me, we have a unit focused on finance, we have a unit focused on fundraising, we have a unit focused on education, specifically on the Kiruv side, which is with public school teens. We have a unit focused on education with Jewish day school teens who need more inspiration. And then we have an operations vertical. And then there's somebody whose job it is to take that across the country. So the chiddush that we came to was not that you need the first groups, which is obvious if you run an organization, you need fundraising, you need finance operations, but we needed somebody who, in addition to me, is spending their time pushing out all of the initiatives that you were talking about to the group. So if I have a head of finance, but I have a regional person who needs to be doing that, how is my head of finance pushing what's being done? I don't know, this is how we're paying bills now. Pushing that out, it's really about focus. We realize that we're in a very big danger of losing the secret sauce, which is the people that actually do the work. I don't do the work. I sit in the back end. I don't think I'm not important. But I sit on the back end and I push papers and I send emails and I approve invoices from this stage right before. I don't actually change. I'm not doing Kiruv. I'm not meeting teens where they are. I'm not inviting them over to my house for Shabbos. So what do I do that enables them to do it? And that's really not only setting up the corporate structures, but setting up that other layer that lets the stuff be real for that person. We could talk a little bit about how we do that, but that's really the key to the whole thing.
Amazing, thank you. And on that point, You know, something that's very difficult is sometimes organizations become very large, not necessarily in staff, but in the amount that they service. And so the individuals that are on top could be totally removed from the services that are being provided. I know NCSY, like you mentioned, has hundreds of chapters across the world, and ATIME is servicing, I believe the number is thousands of couples. I don't want to misquote it, thousands of couples. I can share an anecdote. I hope this is appropriate. I one time had the opportunity to sit in the ATIME Lakewood office with Rabbi Rosen and Rabbi Chaim Rothstein, and it was, I hope this is okay to share, I think like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, or maybe it was 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and they checked how many phone calls did the staff have that day between couples calling in or getting a phone call back. And the number was something ridiculous. Like at 2 o'clock, there was already multiple thousands of calls that were already made on the call system that day. So talking about from senior management all the way to the services provided, how do you make sure that the vision and the mission is maintained from start to services provided? We'll start with you, Reb Daniel.
So I think the first thing is language, communication, but language matters. I learned this when I worked at YU. I worked for President Richard Joel, and he used to have these taglines. And his line was, when people are making fun of them in the perm spiel, you know you've succeeded. And I think that's an important lesson, that when people are able to say, think about jingles. I mean, I didn't know Cars for Kids was Jewish until recently, but I can sing that jingle in my sleep. So the point is, what is the language that you're going to the outside, and what is the language that you're going inside? The second thing is, the internet has been amazing. We're able to do a lot of the work that we do because of the internet, but you got to get on a plane, you got to get on a car, you got to get on a train, you got to meet people where they are. I have the gift that, the opportunity that when I go somewhere, I just like provide free lunch for the staff, and they think that I'm like amazing. But I go there to meet them, and I can talk to them on the phone, I can do whatever. But once you have the language, once you have the goals of what you're trying to achieve, you got to get on a plane, you got to get on a train, you got to travel, because you're never going to see people. I think large gatherings help to help build the movement, but it's really the hand-to-hand combat, I think, on a day-to-day basis that enables us to get the people to do the work that we need them to do.
Awesome. Agreed. That hand-to-hand combat, I like that phrase. The first thing I did when I joined the organization was sit and talk with the frontline employees for hours. They need to feel heard. They need to know that they're being listened to, that it's not just how do I make sure that my message gets to them, but that their life and their work experience is realized at the top as well. So that's number one. I would say in the other direction, it's important too, that they feel heard. That's step number one. Beyond that, communication. So what communication channels can you create as a leader to make sure that everyone in the organization is aware of what's going on outside of their department and what's going on in general for the organization, within the organization, what's going on in the environment affecting us and our constituents. There's couples that reach out to us. So something that I implemented a couple years ago already is just an internal email every week. Every week I send an email to all staff. And it's not just an email with, I think some other topics will come up that we'll pull from this as well, but it's not just an update of organizationally how we're doing. I intentionally go to different leaders, different departments throughout the week, and I pull from them, okay, what's going on? Anything exciting to share? How are things going? And then through that channel, other departments are able to see cross-departmentally what's going on, what's exciting. It's motivating from one side to the other. And again, we can constantly reinforce that message from the top. I'm always bringing it back to the mission, back to the why we're all here. Every single week I include a little vert on the Parsha, tie it into our mission so people can come back to the why, because that's really the unifying force behind the whole organization.
Amazing, thank you. So something that's very difficult, especially if you find yourself in the C-suite, is a lot of times you'll have an idea or a broader vision. And what will come of it is you'll share that with individuals in a specific department, but there's not a lot of cross-communication or pollination in which people are actually speaking to each other and communicating. And even an organization with 5 employees, there can sometimes be silos. How do we as nonprofit leaders avoid there being silos in which parts of the organization feels totally disconnected from another? We'll start with you, Reb Chaim.
Another great question. So first off, like I mentioned before, that communications channel that we had set up is, again, a constant reminder across from department to department what's going on outside of their silo, if you want to call it that. Aside from that, bringing staff together. We try to do a Rosh Chodesh lunch in the office each month. Just an opportunity where people can walk away from their desks, go to the conference room, there's some nice food there available to them, a chance for them to talk amongst themselves. That would be at really any level of the organization, but a lot of the frontline employees to partake in that. Beyond that, something that we haven't implemented yet, but something that we're planning on and I'm working to put it together right now, hopefully after Shavuos, is I would say a leadership all hands. So I'm thinking right now on a quarterly basis, bring all the departmental leaders together in a room. They know this well in advance that we're coming together. I'm offering myself to work with them ahead of time to prepare for that meeting, and that's their opportunity to showcase what's going on in their department, to demonstrate their successes, to talk about their vision, what they're excited about, talk about their challenges and how they worked through it. That way, they're not just other people aren't learning about what's going on outside of their department, but how it's going and what works and what doesn't. And very often, you'll see cross-pollination. People can learn from others, and that information within the building, so to speak, is super valuable. You've employed for them to go on online. I'm sure they can watch plenty of videos to learn new skills and things like that also. But seeing it from their colleagues is a powerful thing.
I agree. I think this is something that we don't do well. I don't think the we, I mean probably everybody in this room. And I think that's mostly because we don't give people space to do things that aren't their responsibility in any given moment. So a lot of the siloing is caused unintentionally by the person themselves being so focused on what they're doing. So I have to get something done today. That doesn't necessarily give me the space to do something else. I'll say my favorite time of day at the Orthodox Union is Mincha, because it's something we have to do, and it's in the office. But I get to daven mincha with people from all over the all over the organization. That's not an NCSY thing, that's an OU thing. But if I didn't have mincha, I could literally sit in my desk from the time I got to the office to the time I leave, maybe take a break to get a coffee or to go to the bathroom, but I'd be so focused, head down on what I'm doing. So it's about the mincha davening to Hashem part for sure, but it's also about that mincha takes place in the office in the middle of the day, and it's something that people do. So what are those mincha opportunities, for lack of a better word, that we're creating to say you could literally busy yourself with making phone calls to teenagers and planning your next program and following up with their parents and recruiting them for the summer program more than 7 days in a week. And they work 7 days a week because they have people over for Shabbos. But we need to give them the space to say, what if you spent 5 hours a week, 4 hours a week, 1 day a week doing something, and held them accountable for that. So with the people that work for me, I literally ask them, what are they doing that is not part of their regular job, and how much time are they spending on it? And they say, well, that's weird. My boss is holding me accountable for something else. But how else are they going to meet other people if I'm just hitting spreadsheets all day? If I'm a finance person, I'm never going to get out of my silo. So I think all the things that Chaim said are true, but it's on us to empower people to give them the space to do other things. Otherwise, you can always make yourself busy.
I want to talk a little bit about leadership as far as it goes with decision making. I think the difference often between a CEO and a COO, and correct me if I'm wrong here, is sometimes a CEO has a lot of vision, a lot of passion, a lot of drive, and so the decisions that are being made are going to come off of a general feeling, whereas the COO has to really jump in and say, well, does this align? Does this fit the potential that we want to build? Is this following the right framework and process? And I think most people don't go about it in a way where they actually have a system for how they make decisions and how they build framework. Maybe you could share a little bit of, is there a quadrant that you look at? Is there a structure? Is there a system when things come up? Are there categories? And if possible, to give some real-life examples. Daniel, if you don't want to kick off.
EOS has really been helpful with this. We have a weekly 90-minute meeting. If you think about the amount of, I described 7 people in that meeting who are the more senior people in the organization. Think about how much that time is worth, but it's worth every penny. So I think there's 2 things. One is how do we make decisions with our leadership team? So the EOS meeting structure enables us to do that, and we really are trying to be transparent about how we make those decisions. Ultimately, just like parents, people can have opinions, their children can have opinions, but parents need to make decisions. I may or may not have disagreed with all the decisions my parents made about me. But that's one. The second thing is the rapport between me and Rabbi Greenland, the international CEO, and International Director of NCSY, is critical. We have a rapport where he understands that there are certain decisions that I'm going to make. I understand that there's certain decisions that he's going to make that I'm going to have to implement. But we speak all the time and structured time. I talk often about the fact that, we all have WhatsApp, and he can reach me. I probably have 5 WhatsApps from him right now. But he knows that if something's important, he can get me. But we meet every single week. We actually meet on Friday, which is a terrible day usually to meet if you are in the Jewish nonprofit space. But for us, because most of the other stuff doesn't happen on Friday, it enables us to close the week and open the week. And he knows, and I know, we mess up sometimes, that we will bring things to that meeting to make decisions. If we didn't have the faith and the trust in each other that we wouldn't be able to bring those things to the meetings, nothing would happen. I'll share one just anecdote about a difficult decision that we made and how we made it as a team. We run a conference every year in Christmas week, between Christmas and New Year's, called Yarchei Kala, a terrible name for a Kiruv program. Most of the people that come can't even say the word. We're working on changing that. And this past year, the attendance, it happened to be a bad year because the public school schedule, and we had already booked a hotel in New Jersey, the Ocean Place, not an inexpensive hotel either. And we had to make a decision: are we going to run the conference? Are we going to lose the money that we already invested, and what are we going to do with the rest of it? Now, to most people, you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars of potential lost money. The law of sunk costs is a very important thing for everybody in this room to realize, that don't put bad money after bad money. That's just worse. But we brought the leadership team together. Everybody spoke. We took the data from the field, and we let everybody vote. And ultimately, the votes came in one direction. That doesn't mean they were unanimous. I think if it would have been a tie, that would have been harder. But I think if you let people speak their minds, then the obvious answer comes. And we ended up not doing the conference. We ate some of the money, and God willing, and we were able to push off some of the money to this year, thanks to Jonathan Glexman, who's sitting in the crowd, negotiating with the hotel. And we'll do the conference again this year. But I think we also gained a lot of points and credibility, not because we chas v'shalom wasted money, but because we decided to make a difficult decision that even cost money. It's easy to make decisions that don't cost money. The decisions that cost money are the hardest ones to make.
Very good. When I think about decision rights governance, I think of RACI. Raise your hand if you heard of that model, RACI, RACI. Yep. Responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. Very basic framework. This could be something that you use explicitly or implicitly when you work with your employees. This applies to an entire department. It can apply to a specific initiative, a project that a number of people are coming together to accomplish something. So who's responsible? Responsible is the person that's actually doing the work, right? The person that banging on keyboards, feet on the ground. Who's accountable? Accountable is that neck to choke. That's the person that their responsibility is to make sure this is a success. They may not have their finger on the keyboard, but they're the ones that I'm going to come to make sure, okay, give me an update, how's it going? Consulted is not everyone that's on the team, even necessarily, or each individual holds all the information they need. Who do you need to consult with? Do you need to pull in our designer to talk to? Do we need to bring in some couples, some of our constituents to get their input on how to go about this? Consulted. And then informed. Who's staying informed throughout the process? Again, more of a passive consumer of what's going on. And that's obviously usually more of a senior leadership thing to keep us informed. So that's the model I like to think about. Sometimes I will explicitly bring that into a meeting and discuss with a project team, literally making a grid with people's names down the side and RACI and checkboxes, and some people could be more than one thing at once. And sometimes it's just in an email. I'll delegate it and I'll say, please loop this person in. Keep me posted, keep me copied on the email so we stay informed. So again, this is something that you can do both formally and informally, but I think it's a very powerful framework to stay a bit more organized about decision-making process, because again, communication is key. If it's not clear, so then everyone's gonna be waiting for someone else to make that call, and it could be a while before things get done.
Amazing, thank you. So for the next one, I think this is something that most organizations struggle with. I know you can ask, if he's here, Judah Miller, my chief of staff, and who's a total rock star. If you poach him, I'll come after you. How do you empower employees to make decisions, especially, and here's the caveat that I think applies to everybody in this conference, especially when usually the people on top are hyper-specific for how they want things, and almost to the extent that they have such a clear, clean vision, it's very hard for people on the ground to be able to call shots without being nervous that it will deviate. How do you empower employees to say, you know what, you can make a mistake, it's okay, even though really it's not, and it's hard for them to feel that way? So we'll start with Daniel.
So I think a couple things. First of all, starting with the last thing you said, I think helping people understand what mistakes are okay to make and what mistakes are not okay to make. It's easy to say mistakes are okay to make. There are some mistakes that are not okay to make. But if you enable people to understand this is something that we leave up to subjectivity, and this is something we don't, I think that goes a long way. The second thing is, I think it takes people like the number twos or the COOs to remind the CEOs often what is their lane and what is not their lane. And them setting the vision is important, but I have no idea. The person who runs NCSY Kiruv in Portland, Oregon is here. I don't know the first thing about Portland, Oregon. I've never been to Portland, Oregon. I will go visit. And neither does Rabbi Greenland. So we have to say these are the things that we do and enable them to try something. Meira started a day camp, a sleepaway camp for people in that area, and it's been very successful. If you would have asked, if she would have asked Rabbi Greenland first, does this fit exactly into your vision for exactly how you think we should be doing our work? It would never work. So I think first is setting the parameters for what are decisions to be made and not, making sure everything fits within the vision. We won't do anything that is not up to our standards, whether that's halachically or hashkafically or in terms of the vision of what we do. But I think really modeling for them that and people holding each other accountable to say, why can't they do that? So often the answer is they can't do that because it doesn't fit. And then they say, like, but why not? It's because it's not exactly the way that we thought the kiruv should be done across the system, but they live in Detroit or Memphis or wherever. Asking that question, why not, instead of why yes, why do we have to give our reshus, I think goes a long way.
Awesome. Okay, so starting with the end first also. So the idea of failure, just quickly on that. Yes, there are certain things that like we cannot fail in, I guess you could say. But I'm always about fail once. Failing once is almost no problem with that, failing once. It's the second time that we haven't learned from, that's the main challenge, yeah? And not just that, but when I talk to employees, staff, top to bottom, it's more about like ask, don't tell. Bring them along the journey, right? When I coach people also, I ask more questions than I tell them things. People have a lot of wisdom within themselves, and yes, sometimes those questions are maybe leading questions from mine because I do have a specific vision for where I want this to go. But bring them along as part of the process. You're not just telling them top down, this is what you need to do. It's also very important. Also, when talking about failure, people run into challenges as they're working through something. They should be comfortable to come to you with a challenge, with a problem. But what I like to do with my staff is you can come to me with whatever problems you want, but any problem you come to me with at least 2 solutions to the problem. So it's very easy to identify problems and be the one to raise the alarm. But at least come with 2 solutions to the problem every time, because it gets a little frustrating when people are just coming with complaints, problems. Yeah, I live in problems. It's about the solution. Let's talk about solutioning.
I love that.
And finally, back to what ask, don't tell. Every time I try, every time Miley Litchfield, our director of Neshama over here, you can tell me if this is true or not. Every time I come to someone with a suggestion or a question, moving them in a certain direction of, okay, let's figure out how we're going to do this. I never just end it there. I try to always follow it up with, okay, how can I help you be successful in this? So they see that it's not just, okay, top down, I'm told what to do and I better get this right. It's, okay, Chaim is with me. They rarely actually take me up on that, by the way. But they know that I've offered it, and that means later on when I poke my head in, let's say, and say, oh, how's it going? Anything I can do to help? It's not out of the blue, like, whoa, like, are you spying on me? It's like, oh, yeah, you offered to help before. I know you're here for me. You're just checking in. So opening up that line of communication is also huge, but being there for your staff, servant leadership, we could talk about that a little more another time, but yeah, key piece.
I just want to say one thing. In addition to that, we're in annual review season at the OU, and I learned something from a boss of mine, a not Jewish guy named John Driscoll, that I brought into my annual reviews, and it's literally exactly what you just said. We go through the goals, and we do this in the mid-year check-ins and the end-of-year check-ins, and I ask the staff, the people that report to me, what are you most proud of? What are they most proud of? Because you learn a lot from what they're most proud of. That's 1. 2, I ask them, what feedback do you have for me, and how can I help you? Usually if you start with the first one, you get much better answers for the second one. And the last thing that I always talk to people about is what is it that they do that they don't enjoy doing? And I give the caveat of saying, I may not be able to take that off your plate. Somebody has to do X. But just knowing, A, what people are proud of doing, B, how can you help them as a leader? And C, what do they not like doing, but maybe we can solve that, maybe we can't. But imo anochi b'tzara, I don't like, approving all the invoices either. I think goes a long way to building that relationship.
Amazing, thank you. So for the next topic, there's a great book, Reb Chaim, you and I have spoken about many times called Culture Code. And to bring it for today's group that's here, we can look at the difference between different communities, different, if I may say, minhagim. And you can tell that's the difference between 2 groups. Maybe they say certain words during davening and another group says something different. The rituals really define where a person identifies. Sometimes organizations, they're a bit stale in culture. Everybody may do a good job, but there's nothing that you can kind of identify within the organization. What are some rituals, routines, or tools that you use to help the teams stay aligned and be productive? We'll start with you, Reb Chaim. And you mentioned one before. I hope you focus on it because I think it's an incredible thing.
Yes, I believe referring to that weekly email, yes. So, like Abisror said, so keeping the, can you repeat the question, just the last part of the question? I just want to make sure I'm getting on the point.
What are the rituals, routines, or tools you use to help keep the teams aligned. And to make them successful?
Got it. So yes, so communication. This weekly email is a way, again, to keep everyone aware of what else is going on in the organization, to maintain that culture of impact. One of the things that I like to share in these emails is thank yous. Thank yous both to staff and thank yous that we receive. People feel part of something when they can see the impact with their own eyes. Again, with large organizations like us, people are in their departments, they're helping in their unique way. They may be aware of the impact they're making in their specific area of the world, but there's many other things that are going on. So again, bringing that together to show we're all here for the same mission. The impact is there. The impact is real. We have consistent emails being forwarded within the organization because different departments do receive thank you emails or texts from their people that help them. Thank you so much for that lost packet. It was exactly what we needed. Thank you so much for that warm dinner after my procedure. That was incredible. Mamish made our night. And we don't just let that sit in that one inbox. We blast it out. Sometimes on that internal email, sometimes randomly in the middle of the week, we'll just send it out. Bringing everyone collectively together around the mission, around the why that we're here, and that's, I think, done really well through stories and appreciation, I think is a very powerful way of doing that.
Daniel?
Yeah, first of all, this is where I actually think WhatsApp is great. I'm really not a fan of running our business on WhatsApp, but that's a whole nother panel discussion. But we have staff members who are doing amazing things. So sharing their stories, sharing the statistics. We just opened as an example. We have these, the main entryway for teens to meet with the work that we do is we actually run what are called Jewish culture clubs, because that's how they can legally be called, in public schools during lunchtime. We just opened our 450th club around the country, and we're in every state now, I think except for Alaska, because we do some virtually. So just sharing that
My brother lives in Anchorage, so we could talk about that after.
That would be amazing. So just being able to share that with the group helps. I think the other thing is we talk about the big goals of the organization and share the small goals. So when we say we want to reach 30,000 teenagers, Jewish teenagers in a year, that sounds like a massive number. And we share with people what their building blocks for that is, but we share everybody the big ones. We're going to reach 30,000 teens, and how are we going to impact them, and what are we doing? And we're transparent about it. For the most part, everybody, at least in the middle management, knows what's going on with everybody around the country. So when we recruit for our summer programs, we had a goal of taking 1,000 public school teens to Israel this summer. Every single week, the head of the summer program sends out an email, and everybody sees, uh-oh, I only have 10. Uh-oh, I only have 7. Some of them say, that's great, I only have 7. I'm from a smaller place, but sharing that with everybody. So I think focusing on the large really is how you help bring people there, and then communicating the wins. I think, a WhatsApp from a picture of a teenager that was like not from who married, forget married Jewish, they're like learning in the mirror now, and like they're going to have Jewish grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and the staff member, quote, bragging about that, carries people for days, weeks, maybe even a year to say, I can be that person. So just opening those channels, I think, helps.
Amazing, thank you. I want to ask one more question, and then we're going to open the floor for some Q&As. A lot of times, whether it's a small organization or a large organization, there's internal conflict. Sometimes the conflict can be healthy, it can lead to growth, success. How do you deal with internal conflict, especially when there's competing priorities within the organization? Chaim, we'll start with you.
Conflict, always an interesting topic. So by nature, I'm a very direct person. I know and see that when there's something festering under the surface, when there are conversations going on behind closed doors, which happen a lot, especially in more mature, older organizations where there's a lot of history, a lot of potential trauma throughout the ups and downs of every nonprofit. Anyone that's been in an organization for more than a few weeks can know that there's going to be ups and downs. So I personally am very big on taking things head on. I like to bring people together in a room. I like to have a straight conversation, removing emotion from the table as quickly as possible, making this very clear. We're all, again, bringing it back to the why, we're all here for the same exact purpose. Let's talk this out. And I think, the food before the makkah, that level of transparency and communication and openness and that type of culture where people know that I can be open with Chaim. He's being direct with me, not because he appreciates me. Like he knows I'm strong enough to handle it. That's why he's having this conversation with me. then those festering conversations behind the scenes decrease as well, because they don't need to happen behind the scenes. They know they can come forward and raise their hand and say, listen, there's actually an address that will listen to what I have to say. So making sure that that address exists, whether it's at the top and within different departments, super important. But that's open, direct communication. If you know, sugarcoating things and waiting around and hearing the conversations that are going behind closed doors, it only, that toxicity can only fester more and more, and it just creates more of a problem over time.
So first of all, I think WhatsApp, voice notes, text messages, emails have no place in these types of discussions, not because legal's gonna get us in trouble for emailing about this, but mostly because you can't see that human element and you never know what's going on. We all have bad days. The first thing I try to figure out is like, what's going on in that person's life? Have a conversation to say like, I don't know, maybe they're having a bad day. I have a bad day too, and I react. Chaim knows I'm an identical twin, so conflict has been literally my entire life. We're not so good at. He and I have worked on the resolution part, but I think understanding like this person's having a bad day. That's okay. It's okay for somebody. What's not okay is to either ream that person out because they said something, or like we have to be human in the end of the day. And I think bringing it back to the why is key, and being in person. I also think not every conflict needs to be resolved. I know that sounds like a crazy concept because we're all in like the do good business and we want everybody to get along, but like, I don't know. I think I like most people, but I'll stop at most. I don't love all people. I'm working on that. I love all Jews. But I think, one of the pieces, and all joking aside, one of the issues I think with the organizations that we all work in is that we inherently love the people that we work with. We inherently love the work that we do. We literally have a chiyuv of ve'ahavta l're'echa kamocha. And when I worked in corporate America, it was much easier to roll my eyes at people, not care about them, not care about what we're doing. That doesn't make me a better person. I'm just saying that's easier. But here, you literally have a chiyuv to make it work with the person sitting across from you. Even more than that, they may go to your same shul. Their brother-in-law may sit next to your cousin. I don't know, they may be related to a board member of yours. All those things are true. So accepting the fact that we don't always all have to get along, other than obviously the meta vision of Yiddishkeit, I think is a critical piece of it. It's not, I think that there's a tension that doesn't belong in a workplace that you have to always get over, but it's okay if I say like, I don't know, I kind of like working with this person more than that person, or, this is my thing, I'm going to do it on my own. I think we often just want everybody to get along and everybody to do everything and everybody to be kumbaya. And then when we try to do that, it makes it, first of all, it's impossible. And secondly, it makes it worse. So I think I am not a rabbi, despite what it says on my tag. So do not hold me halachically to the requirement of what I'm talking about. But I think in an organization, just accepting the fact to say, okay, so we learned from this lesson, these two people, not great to work together. Or this person's better with that, or let's put something else. I think it's just an acknowledgement that's going to make us better without all the drama of trying to make everybody get along forever.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Before we open Q&A, just one point on that. The idea that you mentioned, which I think is brilliant, that not all conflicts have to be resolved. Sometimes those internal conflicts actually push the organization forward. If there's two departments that are kind of fighting for who's right, sometimes that actually is the driving force for things. So I agree with that 1,000%. We're going to open up for Q&A. If anybody wants to kick off throughout the room, just please raise your hand. Amazing.
Hi, I'm Tova Dworkin from Momentum. I guess this
You
question...
guys do amazing work.
Thank you. You do amazing work. We love
Amazing.
partnering
Moms
with you.
are the key to the whole thing in Yiddishkeit. Don't lose all the dads. Irrelevant. Moms are where it's all at.
Thank you. So this question is actually for you. Sorry, Rabbi Rothstein. But since you mentioned EOS, I'm familiar with EOS. What would you say has been the most impactful tool that you've used, either in your work, in your operations, with your teams? And what wisdom or guidance or advice would you take from that for organizations that don't operate on EOS?
So I think two things. One is EOS, I'll just give a little background, has this thing called an accountability chart. It's not an org chart. That's very important. The accountability chart is really what is everybody responsible for. The first thing that we did was we sat in a room and we came up with what the accountability chart should be for the organization. It's supposed to be without thinking of specific people, but if you're smart, you're like, I'm for that seat. I have a person for that seat. But it's supposed to be without that. So that was a very important tool because it enabled us to really think about how we wanted the organization to be structured. That was a 5-person room, and I think only 3 of those people are actually on the leadership team. So it's fascinating to see how that played out. So I encourage accountability chart, not organizational chart. The second thing is the weekly 90-minute meeting. It is literally Kodesh Kodashim to us. It happens, other than if it's Yantif, it's on Wednesdays. It happens regardless of who can come. We haven't had a situation where there are only 2 people. It happens no matter what. It's recorded. EOS itself we use a tool called 90, Moderator.io, which literally lets you track the meeting. And the structure, you talk through wins. I'll just go through it quickly. The beginning of the meeting is you talk about your personal and your professional best for your week. That is probably the most important part of the meeting. It is incredible to hear what people say. My son struck out somebody else's son on the team, or I went to this, or my son made a CM, or my daughter did this. What's your professional best? Then you go through, you review the data. I'll leave that for a second. Then you go through what were the things that had to get done for that meeting. So there's a to-do list. Each person gets assigned the to-dos. They have a week to do them. Then you go through what are called rocks, which are the quarterly things you need to do, and where are you progressing on those. And if somebody is not progressing and they say that the rock is off track, you literally turn it into what I'm going to get to in a second, which is an issue. To say, you didn't deal with this, let's work on this at a team. It's not terrible if you didn't do what you're supposed to do. We have to talk about a team. Then you go through the issues, which is literally talking about what are the issues, very similar to the racing model of what do I need from this issue? Is it that I need to inform people? Do I need to talk? And then you conclude and you rate the meeting. The rating of the meeting is also key because people need to know where they stand. People need to know where they feel. So the ratings, it's interesting. When certain people are on the meetings, ratings are higher or lower. That's for another time. I'm on every meeting, so the ratings are just what they are. So really it's about the accountability chart, and I would say the level 10 meetings is what they're called. They're amazing.
Any other questions?
Just a quick question about the weekly newsletter.
What's your name and where are you from?
Oh, sorry. Hi, my name is Yeshua Lustig. I'm from Ali Tyra in Crown Heights. We run on EOS as well. The question is about the weekly newsletter for the internal communication because we're a big yeshiva with a lot of departments. I don't know this for a fact, but my feeling is something we started in the beginning of the year, and the readership, the views went down. What do you do to keep it interesting? We follow a certain template. We have the feedback column, from our inbox, the Mazel Tov section, a little Dvar Torah. We have it follows a template. I'm wondering if you have a template, if you have a way to spice it up. How do you get people to open that email?
It's a great question. It evolves over time, to your point. So it started really as almost like a list, a structured thing of like highlights for the week. Then we started adding, okay, what else would people want to care about? They probably want to know what the upcoming events are, so they're aware. Because when I walked into the organization, one of the challenges we had, communication, there would be staff on our medical helpline, let's say, that a couple calls in and talks about, the referral for a doctor. Then they'll say, oh, I also heard about this local axe throwing event for the men in my community. Can you tell me something about that? And they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. Which it's not a great look for us, and it's not helpful for the caller, obviously. So events, then it's Mazel Tovs, then it's the thank yous around specific events that we have, follow-up to events that we've run, highlighting the thank yous. I'm adding attachments, I'm adding flyers. This is my own thing, readership-wise, I throw in little Easter eggs here and there. So after the whole beeper brilliance, I just threw a beeper picture in the top of just to see how many people would respond. I got a handful of people that responded. It was a good way of at least testing to see that people are looking at it. But yeah, I'm asking people, I'm trying to get feedback, what people want to hear, and ultimately it comes down to the audience, right? So I've actually branched this beyond just internal a bit, and I include some of our vendors that we work with very closely, some of our board members or major donors that are more involved in the organization. So audience in mind as well, realizing that if it shifts, which it is in our situation, to not only just an internal but slightly external as well, that'll also change a bit of what kind of focus you're going to have on the communication.
We'll take one more
Thank
question.
you.
Aaron Kagan terms are. So besides the email, there are other avenues that you can share what's happening in the organization, like Slack or Monday. I'm not if any of you use those. But one of the challenges is how do you make sure that everyone is sharing what they're doing without it becoming competitive?
Why is competition bad?
Why would you not want it to be competitive?
Pardon?
Why would you not want it to be competitive? In a healthy way. Healthy
Two very
competition.
we are
It's
two
a
very
good point. It's a very good
people,
point.
that I'll say. We're two very competitive people, so it fits perfectly.
Yes, we've been on the basketball court together,
Well,
literally.
the challenges for the departments, they have different metrics of what is success, and part of the challenge is making sure that it doesn't start to become that way, and how do you make sure it isn't? Let's frame
Yeah,
the
so
question that way.
every organization would be different. You'd have to define the proper metrics of success within each department. But I think if it's done in a very healthy, demonstrating impact way, then it's very motivating for other teams to see, especially when change is hard. Again, I came into an organization that's been around for, it was about 30 years already. So the idea of the department heads having to present this type of information was not something that was very common for them, or a couple of them were used to it, but others were not. So getting those others along the change curve to come along the way to actually start doing that, part of what I have done and continue to do is have the ones that are doing it, I amplify that. I share. Thank you so in the weekly email. Thank you so much to our director of the helpline, Rabbi Zitron, for sharing these stats of the calls that came in and the different diagnoses that people are calling about. And other departments say like, oh, I'd like to have a highlight about my department in the newsletter as well. Maybe I'll work a little harder next time I'm asked for some metrics. So again, a healthy competition, I think, is a really good thing.
But I also think there's a way to tie everybody's work back to all the metrics that are being shared. So like I said, I don't do Kirov, but I think that I enable NCSY to reach 30,000 teens. So when I see that they're sharing that, so it may not be my statistic that's coming, but I know the chelek that I have in that. So encouraging people to realize their chelek, and this goes back to specific, in our verticals, the operations and the finance vertical are not nearly as attractive, both from a mission perspective or even like a day-to-day job perspective, as the people doing the Kirov and the people fundraising when they get a big win. But realizing the chelek that each, tying it back, when I have a meeting with my operations people saying, I cannot believe what we were able to achieve, and that's only because of you. That's only because the data got entered because you made the data system. So all of the statistics are all of ours. So that's why we try to focus on the biggest ones, even though some people, okay, but they're all made up of the small ones. But my chelek in the 30,000 is massive. And so is yours, and so is theirs. So all of the statistics, the helpline doesn't happen without the IT department making sure that the phone number works. So if the IT person sees, I didn't get a stat about, I don't know, IT tickets answered. No, but that literally those phone calls don't happen if the phone system doesn't work. And giving them the shout out too. Thank you to, Yasher Koach to this person for reaching 30,000, but thank you to the following 5 people because we had a crash in the phone line and they got it fixed that week. We'll carry that IT person probably for decades, not only for the day.
Amazing. I'll just add one thing to this topic, and I think it's really a great question, is I think in leadership, we always put leaders in the spotlight and not enough of the employees. Just a short anecdote. I'm very good friends with a certain Baal Tzedakah for a very wealthy individual, a philanthropist in Toronto. And the philanthropist is known for being very low-key. One day they were sitting in shul, and somebody collecting money actually went to the philanthropist and said, do you know where the Gabbai Tzedakah is? And he pointed him out in the room. And I think something so important from that story is make it all about the people. I know Reb Chaim and A-Time does that. If you're having the communication and it's coming out, it shouldn't have a picture of the executive director or the CEO who's pushing out that email. It should have a picture of the employees. It should have, if there's going to be a message for the week, it should be a message from the employees. People love showcasing the work that they've done to their friends, and they create that internal culture, and they create that rhythm until eventually you want to look for the email because you want to see that, that you want to see that Easter egg. You want to know what was put in it. I think we have one more. We're done. Okay, we're gonna do a private question. Just one public service announcement for the next session. Actually, it's open to men and women. I know on the sign it said it was only open to women, so we're gonna open that up for both. A huge thank you to our panelists. Make sure to go over and speak to them. These people are brilliant in what they do.
Happy to talk. Anyone? I'm here throughout the day, as is Daniel, I think.